Okay, I am recording. Thanks everybody for joining today. My name is Anne and I'm filling in for Magda, who would normally be hosting um, on the library side, but she is out today. So I just wanted to welcome you all. Welcome Chef Jill Garcia Schmidt, and we are excited to learn about some knife skills today. So if you could just keep yourselves muted, save your questions for the end. We'll have a little time for that. And also this video or this program will be recorded and it'll be on our YouTube page if you want to go back and revisit it later. So welcome, Chef Jill.
Yay! Thank you so much, Anne. Oh my gosh, I am so excited to be here with all of you today. Thank you for joining us on this rainy, gloomy day. As Anne said earlier, it's perfect for an indoor class. So, we have a lot to talk about, and we are going to go ahead and just get started. And I want to talk about what you need before you ever even pick up a knife, okay? Because a lot of times I see home cooks, especially, using equipment that I'm like, oh gosh, your life would be so much easier if you would just invest in a better cutting board or a better knife or whatever. So, we're going to start talking about cutting boards first and foremost, guys, and how to keep them stable on our countertops. Okay. So, I'm sure everybody has their favorite cutting board at home. This is one of mine. It is perfect for small jobs. It actually has these rubber grips on each end that when I sit them down on a countertop, it actually grips fairly well. But if I push real hard, you can see it moving around. I love this for herbs, garlic, anything that is small and I need to just burn through really quickly. Okay, so this is a great little guy to have for speed cutting. But there's always going to be times when I need a large cutting board because how many times have we watched shows on television where you see all of these tiny little bowls filled with ingredients and you're like, I would never do that in my kitchen because I don't want to have to wash all those bowls. Well, me neither, guys. So I use a large cutting board instead. It's only one thing that I have to wash, but there's plenty of surface area here to keep all your little piles of mise en place on so that you only have one thing to wash instead of a whole bunch of little bowls. So, in this situation, size definitely matters. Okay. If I'm cooking an entire meal, this is going to be what I choose to work on, as opposed to this, which is good for, like I said, small jobs. Now, this guy is also great for cutting anything that I don't want to cross contaminate. All right. And I wanted to bring that up before we even started with the knives because this is also where a lot of people struggle on okay, what is cross contamination? How do I prevent it? What do I do if it happens? All that good stuff. So, in my series of classes, we're going to talk about food safety each time so that I kind of beat that into your head what it is that you can do to make sure your whole kitchen is safe and every meal you serve is safe to eat. So when you have a cutting board like this, it's wonderful for meats, um, frozen meats, fresh meats, whatever, seafood, chicken, because this guy could be bleached, right? And a lot of you don't have commercial grade sanitizers at home, but you do have bleach. So if you add a little bit of bleach to your dishwater and then wash it again afterwards, you can use this guy again and again for just about anything. All right. So I always have a plastic, but a nice thick one. And I'm going to show you how I route this to its spot. But first, I want to talk about one more cutting board. And that is my wooden cutting board. I love my teak wooden cutting board. Like, why am I cannot say that? Wooden cutting board. Um, I love this guy because I can do all kinds of veggies on it. It has a great surface for cutting. It does not catch the edge of your knife, which is wonderful for any really sharp knives like my Japanese knives, which we'll talk about. This one comes with its own grips, its little feet on there, which is wonderful because it doesn't move at all, and I can just fly through my mise en place, getting anything prepped and ready to go on this guy. It still has a pretty large surface area, but I tend to contain one project at a time on this and then maybe move it to this or to a plate. So a wooden cutting board is very porous. All right. And this is one you would never want to put in a dishwasher. This requires a special oil that you want to make sure that you use on it from time to time to keep it nice and soft and keep it from drying out and cracking. But this is not what I would cut chicken on. Okay, this guy is not going to go into my dishwasher. I'm not going to use that bleach solution on it, so I'm not going to cut anything that I could possibly cross contaminate on this cutting board. All right, so this is reserved for fresh veggies, breads, fruits, anything that I need to cut that is not going to contaminate this board. All right, so quick review. I love a little plastic one for quick jobs. I also love this because it's very portable. I can take it with me wherever I need to go. I know you're probably like, why would you take a cutting board? But trust me, as a chef, there's almost always an occasion where I'm like, dang, I wish I had a cutting board. So this guy is perfect for that. Round two took us to a very large surface plastic cutting board that can be bleached or sanitized. All right. If you're lucky enough to have a sanitizer that you like, then that's wonderful. And we're going to talk about this one first because I'm going to show you how to root it to its spot. But first, we're going to talk round three, which is the wooden cutting board. Hey, I did it that time, which has the little rubberized feet, which helps to keep it in place. Does require mineral oil to keep it just where I like it, nice and soft, and keep it from cracking. All right. So those are my three favorite kind of cutting boards. What you will never see in my kitchen is a glass cutting board. All right. So those fancy ones that you see at the store that have the paintings on them, those things are murder on your knives. Okay. So you'll never see me use one. If you like one, I won't tell you not to use it, but I will tell you to keep your knives sharpened and sharpened consistently if you're going to use one like that. Now, the last type of cutting board that I want to talk about is one that I see in almost every home kitchen these days, and that is the flexible plastic cutting board. Now, those things are convenient, right? You can throw them on just about any surface. You can chop away, and then you can fold it up, pour your ingredients into whatever you're using. I think that they are great, but you guys, most people are using them incorrectly. And what I mean by that is they are actually supposed to be used on top of another cutting board. Okay. How many of you sitting at home going, squeeze me? But yes, the truth is you take those and put them on top of your sturdy cutting board so that you can continually use your cutting board over and over. You would use the red one for your meat and then chuck that in your sink. You use your green one for your veggies, chuck that in your sink, use the red one. The yellow one for bread or cheeses. But that way you have a nice, clean, sturdy cutting board ready to go, but you've got these interchangeable plastic ones on top. It always cracks me up, and I'm sorry if this is you, but when I see somebody chasing their food around on those tiny little cutting boards that are flexible and they have no way to keep them in place, and so they're just chasing them around. Next time you use them, try just putting them on top of another cutting board, and you're going to be like, oh my God, my life has changed forever. This is wonderful. All right. So now let's talk about how to keep our cutting boards rooted to the spot so that while we are using our knives, we are safe and our food stays on the countertop. Of course, we've already know this one comes with some really cool little feet on it. I love this feature. But it does mean that I can only use one side of this cutting board with these feet effectively. Can I turn this over and use this side? Absolutely, but this would get in my way. It would restrict how much space I would have to use on it. And let's face it, it's designed to go this way. So that is one drawback. I can only use it one direction, but that's okay with me. It's worth it. I love this cutting board. All right, so enough about him. Now I want to talk about how we keep any plastic cutting board, whether it's your individual thin plastic one, your little portable guy like this, or your big one. All right. This is a wonderful product that you can get. I got this at the dollar store. This is either a shelf liner or a drawer liner, whatever you want to call it. This one actually has really good texture and it's really grippy. Okay. So I buy a roll of this and I cut off just pieces that are big enough to mimic the size and shape of my cutting board. Does it have to be the exact? Nah. I can't make it any wider, so I just try to get it as close as I can. And then all I have to do is pop this guy down on my countertop, and then my cutting board goes right on top, and look at that. Dirty, dirty. All right? He's not going to go anywhere, which is exactly what I want when I am cutting. So I don't want to have to chase my cutting board around because that makes everything way more dangerous. So this little guy right here, I think I paid, it's maybe like $4 or $5 for the whole roll. You might even be able to find it cheaper than that. If I want to use it with my small cutting board, all I do is cut it or fold it in half. And now I have the same traction for my small cutting board, right? It's a genius move. Now, if you don't want to go out and get one of these, not a problem, because we all have paper towels at home. And if you want to use paper towels, or if you are a person that does not use paper towels, good for you, first of all. But you could also use your Swedish paper towel, okay? Your reusable guy, same difference. All we're going to do is get this a little bit wet, and I'm not even going to run it under the water. All I'm going to do is get my hands wet like I'm washing them. And then I'm simply going to dry my hands off with this paper towel, or in a Swedish paper towel. Swedish towel, I guess, not so much paper. So it's just damp enough that when I put my cutting board on top, it grips. All right. You can also do this with a clean kitchen towel. I will tell you that this is my second favorite way to go. If I always have a choice, I do this one because it has holes in it. There's room for moisture to hit the bottom and stay on the bottom of the counter, or on the countertop, instead of the bottom of my cutting board. What can happen is a lot of times moisture can get trapped on the bottom, and that's how you get mold. So just make sure you clean both sides of your cutting board really well every time you use it, but especially if you're going to use a kitchen towel or Swedish towel or paper towel as your base for holding everything in place. All right. So I think you guys get the point now. The main thing we want to have here is a large enough cutting board to be able to do the job that we're looking for. So if I'm making dinner, I'm going to use this large cutting board. All right. And then I want something underneath it to make sure that it stays locked in place, so that every time I'm going to lock my work table space there. Every time I go to cut something, I'm not having to chase it around. All right. Thank you for listening to that lecture, but it is important. So now we're going to talk about knives. What you guys can't see, and I probably should have taken that into consideration, but that's okay. I have a magnetic knife rail, okay? And that's how I store all my knives. And I do that for two reasons. Number one, it keeps my knives at a glance, right? I can see everything I have at a glance. It's not tucked away in my knife case, which I do also have. And when I am not in my own kitchen, I always take this so that I have a safe way to carry my knives. But the second reason I like to have it on the magnetic knife rail is because nothing is getting in there to keep them wet. Nothing's going to allow them to get rusty, have food caught in them, or worse, have water collect in the bottom. So when you have a knife block, all right, just make sure, guys, that you every now and then you wash that out, turn it upside down, let all the water drain out of it, and make sure your knives are really dry before you put them away in the knife block, because otherwise it's pretty much a cesspool for bacteria to grow. You put a knife away in a wet knife away in a wood block, and it's that moisture is going to start to build up in there, and you're going to get things like mold. So I just don't do that. I took care of that years ago by adding a magnetic strip to my kitchen. I also don't like them in drawers, obvious reasons. They get banged up. You can get cut while digging around for them. But easy peasy. It cost $10 from IKEA. And I bought that thing probably 15 years ago when they built the IKEA here in town, and I love it. So now that we've talked about how I store my knives, I would like to show you what knives I have. Now, wasn't that easy to get those off there? I just grab them like Edward Scissorhands and come on over. I don't normally have to grab all my knives at once, but I want to make sure we talk about each type of knife that I have and why I have them, why each type is important. Now, one of the most frequent questions that I get asked is, how do I know which knife I need? And once I decide what knife I need, how do I decide on which knife to buy? So in a professional kitchen, as you can see, I have lots of them here, but if I had to pick only three, I'm pretty sure every chef in the world would tell you you need three types of knives, and that's it. All right. You need a chef knife of some sort of chopping knife. Okay. Whether it is a Santoku that has a tilted edge like that, or whether it is a full chef knife that comes to the point here, has the rocking edge. All right. But you need some type of chopping knife. Very, very important for vegetables, herbs, anything that is not cheese or meat, basically. All right. So, chopping knife. That's the first one I always want to have, because let's face it, I could actually cut anything with this. I could cut a tiny little grape in half. I could cut a watermelon in half. I can slice into a turkey. I can slice a roast. I can do anything I need to, even bread with this guy. So this would be the number one. The second type of knife I would need is a serrated knife. Now, there's several different styles out there, several different lengths, but I prefer to have one that can cut cleanly across a cake, a full-size loaf of bread, whatever I need to cut with a serrated knife. I want it to be long enough that I can do that. And actually, the one that I don't have on me right now, that I think I must have left at one of my other kitchens, is my offset serrated knife. And that means that the handle is up here and then it has a dip down. And I love that for getting down into pans and things like that. I try never to cut in a pan, because we don't want any, scratches, because that's where rust grows. But I do love my offset. So the handle would be up here, has a dip down, and then the blade. All right. So serrated, again, I love this for bread, obviously. But guys, my favorite tool for cutting, slicing perfect slices of tomato for BLTs, caprese salads. This way you ensure that you will not smash the tomato, because you have to gently saw, okay? So serrated knives, that would be knife number two. Knife number three would be a paring knife. All right. And a paring knife is a knife that's nice and small, fits in your hand. You can use the tip of the knife to do really delicate knife work. You can peel, you can dice, you can chop, you can do some veggies with this, but more importantly, you can get in there, you can take off silver skin with this from meat. It's not perfect for that, but it works a lot better than this one because the blade is thinner. So I love a paring knife. So pretty much any professional kitchen that you walk into, you will find at least these 3 types of knives. All right. So chef knife will always have the rocker base, and we'll talk about why in a second. Serrated, all right, that's going to look like a bread knife to you, but we can use this for a lot more than just bread. And then paring knife for fine cutting, all right? So make sure you're writing any questions that you have down because I love questions. I always want to make sure you guys get as much information as you possibly can. Now, let's talk about when we've decided which knife we're going to buy as far as which type of knife. So we're going to start with the chef knife, okay? So by starting with the chef knife, once you've picked the style of knife, now you have to pick out which knife you're going to buy and why. A couple of things that I always like to look for on a chef knife is the way the handle is made. This is called a full tang. All right, you guys see what I'm talking about here? Let me come out on the other side of my table to make sure that you can see what I'm talking about. The blade goes all the way through the handle, okay? And when it does that, that means that you have one piece of metal all the way through, which is technically more than one piece of metal because this is layers and layers and layers and layers of metal. But you have one solid piece that goes through the handle. That is going to help you to create balance in the knife, right? Balance is super important. Now, if you have a knife that does not have a full tang handle like this one here, I'm going to tell you right now, this is my favorite knife. It was a gift from one of the chefs that I work with, and I love the way it feels. And even though it does not have that full tang, it's fairly balanced. I can never do it on my right hand for whatever reason. It's fairly balanced, but this part's always going to be a little heavier because this part of the knife does not go all the way through the handle. And you can feel it even just by handling the handle. You're like, okay, this feels heavy. This feels light. But I like the way that this knife moves. So I don't know what to say about that because this one has the full tang and I love that. This one doesn't. Maybe it's just the love that was given to me when it was, but I love this knife. So full tang though really does create balance. All right. And balance is important because when you are doing your rocker motion, you don't want to lose control of the knife because this guy is so lightweight. Okay. Now, the other thing I like to look for is how the knife can be sharpened once I've purchased it. And one of the things that I don't ever want, and I saved this knife for you guys so that you could see exactly what I meant. This is an old knife. I've had this thing for like, I don't know, 25 years. And it is a cheap knife. I think I bought it on the road for a camping trip or something, but you can see how this edge is not smooth. It's got all those little tiny grooves. And that is a standard look for a cheap knife. All right. Why am I showing you this? Because that edge is never going to be quite as strong and quite as sharp as you would like it to be when you go to start sharpening the knife. When you buy it, it'll be nice and sharp, of course. But when you start to go sharpening the knife yourself or have it sharpened professionally, or you start using a steel, which is what this is called, and this is for honing. So you've sharpened the knife Now you're going to get in here and hone it. Those things are actually obstacles that are going to get in your way, and it's never going to be the same again. So if you want a knife that is going to be resharpenable, is that a word? That you can have sharpened again and again and again, that is not an edge that you want. You want one that is going to be nice and smooth. Can you guys see the difference? I want to make sure you can see how that edge has texture and this one is smooth. This guy can be sharpened again and again. He can last me a lifetime if I take care of him. This guy lived his life until I got him sharpened once, and now he is dull and will never be sharp again unless I want to pay for him to be sharpened professionally, but I don't. So let's get on to how to take care of the knife once we have chosen the knife. Actually, before we do that, I want to talk about how you're going to choose that knife. How do you know if that is the right knife for you? I have several different knives here with several different weights. And that is very important because everybody's hands are different sizes. Everybody likes a different grip. But the number one thing we always want to make sure that we remember is that we don't actually hold the knife by the handle so much as we do the blade, right? We choke up on it and we hold the blade. I'm going to get to that in a minute. So I always look at the handle. If it's got a really long handle, this has a longer handle. Guys, I'm telling you right now, if I were to see this one in the grocery store, well, I'd be like, whoa, let's buy it. But if I were to see this in the store, I probably would have picked this one up because it doesn't have the full tang handle, and the handle is really long in comparison to some of my other knives. And that was by design, though, on this knife because that helps with the balance, all right? So I always want to make sure that the handle isn't over long for my hand. So when you pick up your knife, what we're going to do, all right, we don't pick it up by the handle per se. We're actually going to pick it up by the blade, and we're going to grab it right here with our finger and our thumb. Then we wrap the rest of our hand around it. Let me show that to you again. I'm going to get a little closer. Here's the knife, all right? We're going to pinch it between our forefinger and our thumb, and then avoiding this guy right here, which is called the heel, we're going to wrap the rest of our fingers around, and now we have what is considered to be a full extension of our arm. All right, it is now part of us, not just a tool, but it is a part of our arm, and we can use this all as one piece. And it doesn't matter which type of knife you're using, you're always going to approach it the same way. You're always going to hold it between your forefinger and your thumb to make sure that you have complete and utter control of the blade. Look at the difference. All right, you see how much loosey-goosey movement my wrist has because all I'm doing is holding onto the blade? And if you look at my muscles here, they're engaged, but they're not fully engaged. If I choke up on the knife and I hold on to the blade, look at the difference in the way my wrist moves and in the difference in the way my muscles engage. All right, it's all important, and it all will create a better knife stroke. And even if I'm using a serrated knife and I'm going to cut bread, same exact hold, all right? If I'm going to be using my paring knife to do some small detail work, still same thing. And even for more detail, I'm going to choke up even more, keeping my fingers away from the edge of the blade, but being able to really control the tip. All right, so let's review. When we grab a knife, Yeah, you can pick it up by the handle. Absolutely. We do it all the time. Do we wave them around like this in the kitchen? No. That's how people get hurt, right? So if you're carrying a knife in the kitchen, we do it like second graders with scissors, always straight down. And if you're walking behind somebody with a sharp knife, you say, sharp behind you. And they go, oh, okay. And they get out of your way, right? Especially when you live in a small kitchen like this one. I always tell my husband, sharp behind you. So he doesn't just randomly back up into me. I also don't just stand there like this, waiting for him to back into me, okay? Now, once you have decided this is the knife for me, this is what I'm going to use, now you get to kind of play with your knife set. Why do I have all these knives? What are they all used for? This one here is my second favorite, and you can see that it actually has holes in the blade. This is a veggie knife from Wusthof. I'm not here to sell anything to you. I'm just telling you that these are the ones I like. What I love about this is it's got the holes here. This helps to create friction so that when you are cutting vegetables really quickly, the veggies don't stick to the knife and you can really just blaze through things. Even potatoes will fall off this knife, which is great when you're making like scallop potatoes or diced potatoes. And you don't want everything getting all sticky and gooey on your knife. So that's what this one's for. This is called a santuco. It's got the blunter edge or end on it, and it has a very flat looking base in comparison to the veg knife, which is based on a chef knife. This looks just like a chef knife, and you can use it just like one. This guy here has that flatter bottom though, right? So that should tell you immediately that it's used differently in on your cutting board, okay? Then you have this one, which is a Japanese knife, a Nakiri knife. And I love this guy for doing all of my Asian cuts, which is a little more advanced class, but if you want to do that, let me know. But you can do all kinds of advanced cuts with this guy. And I know you're probably thinking, what, that little square dude? But yes. And for those of you who watch The Pioneer Woman, she actually uses a nigiri knife, which I think is hilarious, because I don't know if she even knew what it was when she bought it. She just liked it. And I support that. So there you go. That's what that one is. Now, these are both Japanese knives, and Japanese knives have much narrower blades. These guys can get down to a 17-degree blade here. That's a very, very narrow edge, especially in comparison to my veggie guy here. All right, which is anywhere from 13 to 14, 12 to 14. This guy is going to be 17. Very, very narrow. So I think we've talked about enough of this, what kind of knives, why I have them, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to teach you guys how to use them and why we have the steel, which is what this dude's called. All right. This is not for sharpening. People always are like, let me sharpen my knives right before I use them. And they're all like, anything you put on here will eventually get a little bit shiny on the edge because it's, you know, metal on metal. But it's not really for sharpening, it's for honing. So once you have your knife professionally sharpened, right? That's how I always tell people to do it, unless you learn how to do it yourself. And I mean, learn how to do it yourself. Don't just whack at it. Once you have your knives professionally sharpened, then it's the steel's job before each use to make sure that your edges are honed. And what that means is that your edge here is all straight, because when we use it, this edge will start to curl. Isn't that crazy to think about? But it does. So this all starts to curl under. If you're right-handed like me, it'll curl this way. If you're left-handed, it'll curl the other way. But your blade will end up doing that. And so by using your steel, which is just gently gliding the edge of the blade along the steel, that's going to help get rid of that curl so that you have a honed blade that will go straight through whatever it is you're cooking or cutting, excuse me. So this guy always lives near my knives, if not on my magnetic strip, so that he's always ready to go whenever I'm ready to start cutting. And again, it doesn't matter what kind of knife I'm using. You can even do your serrated knives on here. All right, just to clean up those edges and make sure that they're ready. Now, I should probably tell you, why am I doing this with my thumb? Well, a really well sharpened knife obviously will cut through paper, cut the hair, whatever. But what you don't want to do to check to see if it's sharp is, right? No, no, no. So we just take our thumb or our finger and we just gently run it down the blade like this. And what you'll feel is a little bit of friction, right? And if you feel that little bit of catch, you're like, sweet, it's sharp, it's ready to go. And you'll know the difference because when you do it the first time, much better. You won't feel any kind of friction at all. But once you've sharpened it, you will get that beautiful edge again. Yeah. And you could probably, I don't know, if I hold this close to my microphone, you might be able to hear this. Right? And this guy that was like a pretend knife at this point in his life, he, nada. I mean, literally, he has nothing left to him. So, all right. As promised, I am going to show you guys how to cut an onion without making you cry. And we're going to do that with our chef's knife. In this case, I'm going to use my veggie knife. But if you have a regular chef knife at home, that is what I would encourage you to work with first. All right. So that you can learn how to control the knife, how to control its movement, why it's made with the rocker bottom, and all of that. So an onion is like the earth. It is a globe. It has a north pole, which is the stem end, and the south pole, which is the root end. Okay? This is the equator. We don't cut through the equator. Why? Because I'll show you why. You'll have much better results if you do it the way I'm about to teach you. But if we cut through this guy with one big whack, which is how we always want to do it because it's round, right? And we're like, it's all round. How do I get it to work with it without it rolling all over my cutting board? Well, that means we're going to have to cut it in half, okay? And most people want to just turn it on its top, its north pole, and just get in here and just go straight through the onion. And as effective as that might be, I have to tell you that that is what is going to wake up all of the sulfurous chemicals in there that will then seep into your eyes and make you cry like a baby. So in order to avoid that from happening, we are going to wield the knife the way that the knife was intended. We are going to use the whole blade from tip to bottom, bottom to top, the whole thing. And we are going to do it in just a couple of easy motions. So we're going to turn this actually on its side first because we're going to cut off the north pole so that we have a flat surface to work with. This particular onion actually has a pretty flat north pole as it is, but it wouldn't be a proper lesson if I didn't show you. So I just realized that it is very dark on black. Miss Ann, can you just pipe in for a second and tell me, can you even see the onion in front of my coat?
Oh, yeah, we can see it.
Okay, great. Thank you. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by just evening this up and cutting off the end here. And we're going to start with the tip of our blade. And you'll notice I am properly holding my knife. Okay, it doesn't matter what cut I'm doing. I'm always going to hold the knife like it is part of my arm. All right. So we're going to start at the tip, and I'm going to show you this direction so you can see both the front and the side. I'm going to hold on to the onion with all of my fingers, but I'm going to make sure that my wrist is down on the cutting board so that I have some balance and I'm not letting the onion control the situation. You guys see the difference? Onion controlling, Chef Jill controlling. Okay. So I'm going to keep my wrist down. My elbow's going to be in because our instinct is to cut this onion like this, but we don't want that. So my elbow's going to be tucked in. So I'm going to start with the tip of the knife and I'm going to push, make sure my elbow's down or my wrist is down, push forward as I push down. And then as I pull back, slice through the onion. All right. Now, what you didn't hear was, right? None of that. And that's because I've just gently cut that apart. And now look, I could rub it all over my eyes and no tears at all. That's just the first cut though, y'all. Okay. So let's get that out of the way. Now this is going to go straight down and look at that. Now I have a flat surface to work with. That's going to make cutting this in half so much easier. So once again, I'm going to use the tip to heel. All right. But trying to hold the onion like this is going to not be very safe. So instead, what I'm going to do is the bridge hold. I'm going to put the knife between my thumb and forefinger while I hold the onion in place. All right. I'm going to do the exact same motion while I'm going to press down. The tip of that. There we go. The root of that is a little tougher, so make sure you understand that. You're going to need a little more pressure. Push down, and then as I come back, I'm going to push down again. And this time, I can pull my whole knife through, and I've got two halves. And no tears. Okay? So that's the second cut. Now, at this point, we need to make sure, I think you guys can probably see that, all right, that we get the slippery skin off here. And I don't fight my food. I have thumbs and a brain, which means that I have to win each time. So I am not going to sit here and argue with this guy over whether or not he wants to get undressed. So I just take the first layer off because it is actually that interior layer that has that kind of film on it that if you let it stay on the onion, your knife will slip right off of it, even if it's a very sharp knife. So now I have a really clean onion, and you'll note that I did my best to peel this off in large pieces or in one piece. Same reason, guys. If I rip into this can make me cry. So just treating it a little gentle. Now, the first half, I'm going to do this for you slowly so I can show you each cut and all the intention behind it. But the second half, I'm going to do in real time so that you guys can understand how quick it is. Now, we have a flat surface here. We have a flat surface here. The good Lord already gave us all these layers in here, which means that if you don't want to make that horizontal cut across, you don't have to, because this will all separate out into individual pieces once you've cut it. But if you want to cut it small into a dice, then you can go ahead and cut straight across. And to do that, you're going to pull everything towards the end of the cutting board. Now, this is where I would like to adjust the camera, and if that's okay with you. So bear with me for just a moment as I get a little closer here. I want you guys to be able to see my hands. Okay. How's that look, Anne? Is that okay?
Yep, that's good.
Okay. So you want to bring everything to the end of the cutting board. Notice that my cutting board is at the end of my workstation here. I don't have it in the middle. I'm not having to reach across the countertop. Even if I was using the countertop over here, I would have it as close to the edge as I could possibly get it without it hanging over. All right. And the reason for that is because my knife has this handle on it, right? If I lay my knife on the cutting board like this, it does not lay flat, does it? No. You can see light through here, and that is because this handle gets in the way and prevents it from laying flat. But if I take the handle off the cutting board, now my knife is completely flat. And you might be thinking, but we're not flattening anything. No, we are not. But when we want to do horizontal cuts, we want to be able to get parallel with the edge of the cutting board to make sure they're nice and straight cuts. If we are doing this, then not only is the handle in the way, but so is our hand. All right. So always want to work towards the end of the cutting board. So I'm going to actually pull the onion towards the end of the cutting board and have it as close to the edge as possible so that my handle never interacts with the cutting board. Does that make sense to everybody? I hope so. Let me demonstrate. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this guy, and we're going to just cut him about 3/4 of the way through here. All right. We're going to do just like this and gentle saw back and forth. Once I've got about 3/4 of the way through, we're going to pull that out. Now it looks like this. Now we're going to follow all of these lines that are already drawn in here. And we're going to wiggle waggle, snake. Each time I'm going to use my finger then to hold the piece that we just cut. Then we're going to go back this direction. And I'll show you this up close here in a second. So now we have a crosshatch, checkerboard, all that good stuff, right? But because we didn't cut the root off, I was just going to say it's all still together except for that one little piece that had to fall off. But this root is my third hand. He's holding everybody together for me. Now I'm going to bring him back to the edge, and I'm going to start at the tip of my knife, and I'm going to cut forward and down. And each time I'm going to press the knife into the onion and away from me so that it is cleanly cutting through, and I have this beautiful diced onion. All right. Now, Miss Ann, I know that we are close, so I'm going to do this one in real time, and then I'd like to open the floor to some questions, okay? So here I go. If I was cutting this at home, oh wait, I am at home, but you know what I mean. If I was doing this for dinner, I'm just going to do it real quick. The wiggle waggle or sawing it in there is what is going to prevent you from whacking through all of those chemicals that will make you cry. No tears. So, really quick review, and then I want to open the floor. Make sure that you choose at least a chef knife, a paring knife, and a serrated knife, all right, for your collection. When you hold the knife, we're going to grab it with our thumb and our forefinger, wrap the rest of our fingers around it, and use it as one arm, one piece of machinery, right? And then finally, when we store them, we're going to make sure that they are super duper dry before we put them away. If you're going to use a wooden block, make sure and clean it out every now and then, turn it over and let it get really dried out. And we never ever put them in the dishwasher. Never, ever, ever. So we had a lot to talk about today. Let's hit all those questions, guys.
Hi, I just wanted to say this was such an amazing lesson. You're a really great teacher. I learned so much. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh
Um,
my gosh, thank you.
I learned so much. This was incredible. And so I had like two questions. So
Mhm.
my first one was you had mentioned the mineral oil. Where do you suggest that we get like mineral oil? Where would we buy that?
Very good question. Thank you. So, I get mine at Lowe's, not just because my husband works there, but for real because I don't even remember what I paid for this, but I've had this one for at least a year, if not longer. And you can see there's barely any gone. And I love to mineral oil my board. And I'm glad that you asked because I had not done it yet today so that I could show you. Just a towel, any kind of damp towel. It doesn't have to be wet, okay? About a quarter size, it'll spread. And then you just want to rub it in, especially into the areas that get used the most. All right. But you can get this at any hardware store. You might even be able to find it at Walmart. And of course, don't forget, Jeff Bezos has everything on Amazon.
And so do you do that every time you use the wooden cutting board? Okay.
Yes, I do, because I wash my cutting board. Some people do not use soap and water. I do, but that's because I do take care of it afterwards with the oil. And again, if you do it every time, it will preserve it for a long time. I've had this cutting board, I don't know, 15 years. And I mean, it looks great.
Yeah, it does. It really does. That's awesome. And then
and this is totally food safe, of course.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. And then my second question was, you had mentioned getting the blades professionally sharpened. Where would
Yes.
you do that?
Okay, so two ways I know of for sure in town. Now I don't know where you guys, most of you live in KCK area, right? So I would say that Ambrosi Brothers, which is in the Crossroad District, they are phenomenal. They can do anything. All right. Scissors, swords, you name it, they can do it. So Ambrosi Brothers is a great place. But I also know that Chef James Graham, he has a I Will Come to You chef knife sharpening business. And he also has a booth out at the Overland Park Farmers Market. I don't know if he does Wednesdays, but for sure he does Saturdays.
Okay.
So you can Google him, Chef James Graham. I don't know if he goes by chef for that or not, but James Graham Knife Sharpening. And again, he's at the Overland Park Farmers Market. And he is the one I have do all my personal knives. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you. Absolutely. I love it. All right. Who else? There's no way I answered all of your questions today. Okay. Well, if I really did answer all of your questions, I'm totally cool with that because I tend to do these classes and non-stop talk. And I've been told before that it's the mindless jibber jabber that I do that ends up having the most impact because it's just all this information I have in my melon. So before we sign off today, first of all, thank you so much for joining me. In case you can't tell, I'm very, very passionate about what I do. I absolutely love teaching people how to change their lives one meal at a time. And I have 5 or 6 more classes coming at you guys. So make sure you check the schedule for what else is coming your way. But it's going to be tons of fun all summer long. You can also find me out at the Olive Tree in Leawood and out at the Cider House out in Garden City, Missouri. So, and private parties, I am Chef Jill from JillsKitchenKC.com. Check me out. All right, Anna, Ann, anything else?
No, thank you so much. This was great, and we look forward to having you back again soon.
Thank you so much, you guys. Enjoy the rest of this beautiful, gloomy day. All right, take care.
Thanks,
Stay
everyone.
hungry.
Thank you.